Think of an organization you care about. It can be a nonprofit, it can be a school, it can be a church. When you care about an organization, you want that organization to have a good leader. And Hyde Park Schools is an organization I care quite a bit about. You'll hear about why in this conversation I had an opportunity to make what was the biggest pivot in my life when I was 15 years old and leave the school that I had gone to since I was in pre-K and go to Hyde Park. And ultimately, I realize in hindsight how important that was to my development, particularly at the time. Again, you'll hear more about that in this conversation. But when you have an organization you care about, you really want it to have a good leader. And Dr. Chris Coy is a good leader. He's the kind of man that you want running an organization like Hyde Park Schools. We cover a lot of ground in this conversation like we always do. We talk about faith, we talk about professional life, we talk about balancing the family and being present for both, managing the tension between the two. Dr. Coy is somebody I've come to respect quite a bit. I call him a friend. Enjoy the conversation with Dr. Chris Coy. Furniture in general, I like it to have a little patina.
Okay.
So I have forbidden coasters on my table in my room at the house because I get one room. I have a big,
nice
thick wood table there, and that table's there to be used. You spill stuff on it, you're just adding to the layers of patina. It's character.
Yeah. It's just, so was there's a ring.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. That wasn't me.
No, the drink's on this side.
Yeah.
All right, what are we talking about? Tomahawk steaks. So you go slow smoke until it reaches 95 internal temperature.
Yeah.
And then a hot sear.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do a sauce?
Heck no.
No sauce on your steak?
No. So I let it rest with butter on top.
Oh, let it soak up that butter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe some sea salt on top, but I have to force myself to leave it alone. Don't add to it. Just keep it simple.
Let the meat speak for itself.
The key is just the right internal temperature, and don't burn it.
Yeah.
Just
do you go to a butcher, or you just go to like
H-E-B?
Just an H-E-B.
Mm-hmm.
They have tomahawk steaks at H-E-B.
If you ask for it,
really,
they might give you a bad look and take 10 minutes to cut it up. But they'll
be upset with you for having to work.
Sometimes it's out on the display. But I love these guys, a small group of guys, and the pastor isn't able to make it all the time, and so it's a rare opportunity. Wife's out of town, kids aren't there, so let's just hang out.
A guy time.
Yep.
It's we were talking before we had to pause about those guy friend groups and the value of proximity to those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not have recognized the importance of proximity to those relationships until moving. Because it's not like we moved forever away.
Mm-hmm.
We're 35 minutes from our old house. But if you don't have the ability to just pop in on somebody and say hello when you want to, or you don't have that regularly set cadence of, I'm going to see you every Thursday, it's the relationships change.
They do.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. And it's particularly hard for a almost 40-year-old person to rebuild relationships.
You ain't got time for that.
I underestimated how hard that would be.
The kids, if your kids aren't crossing over, it's even harder too. Because that's a built-in, I'm going to be friends with, wherever my kids drag me to. That helps too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes some intentionality.
When COVID happened, about a month into it, it was like mid-April into lockdowns. I'm talking with a buddy of mine. We were talking about marketing stuff for Live Oak. We had decided, okay, we're going to invest a bunch in marketing and sales during this period and see if we can capitalize on what we thought would be a wave. So I'm talking to a friend of mine, Mike Spadier, about marketing initiatives. And I stopped the meeting. I was like, man, I got to be honest with you. This whole lockdown BS, I'm not into it. I can't do it. I'm too much of a social creature. I've got to see you face to face.
Right.
Are you okay with that? Can we find a way that you can comfortably come over? We can meet somewhere in the middle. I'll stay away from you. This is before we kind of knew what COVID was. Mm-hmm. And he agreed. He was having the same experience.
This is April. It was going to be over by Memorial Day.
It was 2 weeks to
That's
stop
what I was
to
told,
flatten the curve, right? So we decided, okay, the best way for us to do this would be like a backyard, sit down. Well, I've got a fire pit in my backyard. Let's just do a campfire. Yeah. And I had two other friends that one of which knew Mike, one of which didn't. But I kind of had a sense, okay, all these guys are going to get along. So we had them come over to the house. We lit the fire probably 7:30 at night. And we were there till 2 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
And we got to 2 a.m. We said, okay, guys, we've got to stop, but maybe we do it again next week.
So the next Thursday they come over and we did it again. And then we did that every Thursday night for almost 2 years.
Whoa.
And it only stopped because I left Austin. Because it was my yard was kind of the central meeting point for everybody. But it was a thing that,
How healthy was that?
dude, and you don't have that level of depth in relationships with people unless you're seeing them regularly and
Right.
having hours and hours and hours of open discussion. And
Mm.
part of our thing was, we call it the campfire NDA, campfire non-disclosure, where bring what you want to talk about, say what you want to say. You can be as wild, outlandish as you want to, whatever is said at campfire stays at campfire.
Yeah.
And when somebody else goes first, when somebody else kind of airs their dirty laundry, and then you see everybody sort of like, oh,
Yeah. We're
nothing
doing
happened
this
here. We trust each other. Then you can really get to some depth and start to talk about some things that you wouldn't have otherwise. Man, I've got to have that in my life.
Yeah.
There's a felt sense of deficiency when that's not there.
Mm-hmm. Mental health. It's like such a great thing for your mental health.
Yeah.
Be with people, talk it out, with people you trust.
What's your relationship like with your pastor? Is he your age or is he older?
My age. He's probably one of my best friends,
Really?
which is unique. Yeah, we're close.
How often you talk?
Every week. Yep, every week. We have a unique relationship where he's also does some consulting work. And so he's been helping me with some consulting things as well separately. But yeah, a couple years ago, he put together a group of guys to meet once a week for an entire year. And so I was in that group. So that helped a ton too. But yeah, I am very fortunate to have a lot of access to someone that, it's hard to, he can't have that with everyone. And so very grateful.
Was it centered around some sort of a Bible study, or was it just, hey, we're going to get together once a week and commit to a year?
Yeah, it was part Bible study, just in general, just like a discipleship group. It's just he's done this a ton of times with guys, and just kind of walking like authentic community, kind of like their fire, your backyard fire, like that. Plus, um, following the ways of Jesus. What does the Bible say? Also, our own rhythms, how to be a dad, how to be a husband, but really just your own journey. And it was so cool because the expectation was that after the end of this group that we would do that with others. And so the following year, I led a group of 3 guys. So it was great.
Yeah. You still trying to do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Were you raised in church?
I was. My earliest memories, Beaumont, Texas, First Christian Church, running up and down the hallways. I had these little boots. Like, I was early, like 4 or 5 earliest memories, running up and down the church hallways with my boots. And my dad still has those boots. So that's my earliest memories. Yeah, growing up. But yeah, some like, and then in high school as well. But and growing up in church, sometimes that's really good, and sometimes that's not as good. And because you can get tricked in, oh well, I'm underneath this roof. I'm in this place called church, therefore I should be changing and different. And everyone that is ultimately changed by a person, not a building, realizes like, oh, it's a lot more to it than just being at a building.
Yeah. Which was it for you? Was it advantageous to be raised around it, or was it detrimental to your development? Detrimental is a heavy word, so maybe not detrimental, but
net, it's usually better to be raised in a church. However, you can't stay there on your own. You have to make your own decision, as opposed to no faith background. Right. You still have these core kind of habits of like Sunday morning, I just feel like I should be somewhere. Yeah. So I raised my family and my boys just like, that's just a rhythm. However, I know now that it's a lot more than just going to church.
When did your faith become your own thing?
When did you have that pivot point where you realized this is something from my youth that I've never really grappled with on my own and probably should grapple with?
June 2007.
You have it pinpointed. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me the catalyst for
I
it.
got baptized as an adult. I made a public declaration of a personal faith in old pastor's swimming pool. And it was my own. Yeah.
What was the catalyst for it? Like was there life events happening around that time where you just had to reckon with the concept of faith for yourself, or was it just sort of a gradual, okay, now this is my thing?
It was a gradual thing, but it was my identity was wrapped up in being a baseball player. So what happens at 22 when you're no longer a baseball player? There's a huge identity crisis, quarter life crisis, that kind of thing. So I was always a believer from my youngest memories, which is helpful to be raised in a church. You know, at some point you're a believer, but so is the devil. Okay, so believing, okay, but what about becoming a follower? That was my own journey of like, okay, I'm on my own. So, and it took pastors and other men in my life to show me and guide me. It's like, hey, why don't you consider making this your own and following on your own? Because you run out, if you put your eggs in a basket of family or career or baseball or a relationship, you can keep doing those. But eventually you're like, God, there's something more than all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, by the grace of God, I was able to have men in my life to show me a different way. And I raised my hand and said, yeah, I'm going to follow this way. And that was June of 2007.
Was the concept of baptism hard for you?
No.
Why?
I was able to understand, there's nothing magical about the chlorine of the pool water. It's just a public declaration of a decision on the inside. And I like the accountability too, because there was family and friends there. I got baptized with Bill Price, my buddy. We got baptized together. We're on this journey together, and we'll always have that connection together. But, I think I was, not ashamed of the gospel. I wanted to be like, I don't have it figured out, and I need help, and I'm going to put my faith in Jesus and see what happens.
We had, I went back and I re-listened to our original conversation. So this podcast is different now than the first time you came on.
Okay.
I don't know if you're aware of this.
Well, you're a lot better, Tanner, as a guest.
Yeah, I'm more mature. I've grown up.
Grown up a lot.
Yeah. So the first 9 episodes of which you were one, we recorded 10.
Yeah.
For Live Oak, the Live Oak podcast, and then somewhere 3 to 4 in, actually, when you came in and we visited, I left realizing, man, I'm leaving the studio with more energy than I went into it with. This is something I should be chasing.
It wasn't the coffee. It was
It could have been the coffee.
Okay.
I give you less credit than I give the coffee.
Sure.
But somewhere in there realized, okay, this is something I want to keep doing, and it's probably not something I need to just make exclusively through the company. I'll do it for myself.
Cool.
But went back and I re-listened to our conversation, which I thought was a really good one. One of the things we talked about that relates to this public declaration of faith was a business that touts the Christian foundations or the Christian faith of the owner as part of its marketing materials.
I remember that.
Remember that conversation? Yeah. And I have such an aversion to public declarations of anything. If you have to go publicly declare what you are, then you may not be super confident in what you are if you have to go declare it. Like, just let what you are speak for itself. Yeah. So this is something that my buddy Phil, who's the pastor of the church that we go to, he and I have talked about quite a bit. I have not been baptized.
Okay.
And the reason I haven't is that concept of publicly declaring anything about myself. I don't know why. It just feels gross to me.
Yeah.
How do you square that circle for somebody like me who is uncomfortable making a public declaration of anything related to myself?
What are you afraid of?
Not afraid of anything.
So why not do it? You asked me.
Yeah, I mean, you could ask that question about a lot of things.
So, why wouldn't you? Jesus got baptized.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be enough. Um, I love though that you're not going to do it until you're not like just blind obedience.
Yeah.
Some people think, well, this is what the Bible says, so therefore do it. I love that you're pushing back on your pastor. Um, you know, I would say it starts and finishes with, well, Jesus got baptized, so you can be like him. There's that, but also, um, it's just a symbol.
Mm.
It's just a symbol. And if Tanner Vaughn got baptized and you talked about it, it would you have a platform and you would make a difference, and people might ask questions like, well, why'd you get baptized?
Mm.
Then you were able to talk about it. But it's just a public declaration of decision you've already made.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's you're in heaven, not heaven. Like it's just a public direction. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that the Bible talks about being baptized. I think Jesus got baptized, all those things. And to be honest, when I did it in 2007, I trusted the people that were leading me in this way. So I was like, okay, yeah. If the pastor that I trust says, would you consider being baptized? I didn't have enough courage or brains to be like, well, wait a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my story being raised in private schools
Mm-hmm.
and Southern Baptist churches, you are exposed to a certain kind of a person frequently.
Yeah.
Particularly the men that I was raised around.
Mm-hmm.
I had this juxtaposition. I had men in my personal life, men in my family that are a certain kind of man.
Mm-hmm.
They're a lot like me. They're big, loud.
Yeah.
They like to hunt and fish and drink and have a good time.
Yeah.
Then there was men that I was exposed to through church that were different, very soft-spoken.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them, this is the thing that I have a tough time with. Many of them, when they talk about their faith and they talk about the role that God plays in their life, to a bystander watching them operate,
Yeah.
they use their faith as a excuse to not do things.
Yeah.
Because the Bible says to be still and know that I'm God.
Mm-hmm.
And many men of faith use that as a reason to just not do anything.
Mm.
God will take care of me. So I shouldn't use the things that he's blessed me with to go try to get ahead. And for somebody who is competitive by nature, who wants to get ahead, who's motivated to do things, it's very, very hard to reconcile those two things against each other.
Yeah.
And when you're raised in a small Southern Baptist context, asking questions about those things is heresy.
Yeah.
What are you doing asking questions?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was probably in my mid-20s, Chris, where there was a Thomas Jefferson quote, and I forget the full context of the story, but it was something like a friend of his was dying, had a son that he wanted Jefferson to help mentor.
Yeah.
And so there's all these letters written back and forth between, I want to say it was Thomas Jefferson, I could be wrong, but between Jefferson and this young guy. And in one of Jefferson's letters, he says, on the concept of God, this is a paraphrase,
Mm-hmm.
on the concept of God, I don't know for sure, but I do know that be there a God, he must surely prefer honest questioning to blindfolded adherence,
Mm-hmm.
or blindfolded fear, I think was the way that he wrote it.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that was a thing that resonated like a bell for me, because it's the way that I felt about it.
Yeah.
Like if I've got questions about baptism, why do I have to get baptized?
Yeah.
I have an issue with authority telling me what to do anyways.
Yeah.
So I need a better reason. To not be able to ask those questions when you're a young man means that when you get to be a little bit older, it's harder to come to grips with the questions that I have just because my pastor tells me that I should, or even tells me that it'd be good for me and my ability to minister to others if I publicly declare.
Yeah.
Boy, it's hard for me because I want to live my life in such a way that it tells people what I'm about. And if they're curious to know more, then okay, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go put a bumper sticker on my car that says Live Oak IT, a Christian-owned business since 2014.
Yeah.
I just think that's gross.
Yeah.
It's a little easier for you and what
Yeah.
you do for a living because you're
Sure.
part of the school.
I'm a professional Christian.
You are. You are.
I get paid to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah.
JK. It's not gross. It's not gross if you say you're a Christian company. It's gross if you say you're a Christian company, don't act like.
Yeah. I think that's the problem that I've had with it. And that when we talked about it originally in our first visit,
Yeah.
that was the context, was that some of the worst, most unethical business practices I have seen since working have been private schools,
Sure,
churches, or companies that have a cross in their logo or a Christian fish in their logo, and they publicly tout how Christian they are.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing for me.
Yeah. Those men you talked about when you grew up, all of them, the ones that on this side hunt and fish and all that kind of stuff, and the pastors, something like that. All of them were imperfect. All of them were hypocrites.
Right.
Every company that touts it, they're all hypocrites. Chris Coy's a hypocrite, and I'm the head of school of a private school. Yes, guilty as charged, guilty as charged, guilty as charged. And that's why I don't worship a church or worship other men. When you look at the life of Jesus, he was not a hypocrite. And he did things that were bold, and he did things that were action, and he flipped tables over, and he had conviction, and he did hard things. And so, millions of millennials leave the church every year. Understood. We're all hypocrites. Yep. But I would just ask all those critics to look at the life of Jesus and ask, was he a hypocrite? No, he wasn't. But that's a challenge, though. And I get why church, and I get why the Christian bumper stickers is because we screwed it all up, which is the whole point.
It's a human thing.
Yeah.
It's not exclusive to Christians.
Yeah. But following the life of Jesus makes so much more sense than following churches or even pastors. Those are important. Pastors are important. Churches are important. Nothing's more important than personal relationship with Jesus. So if you got baptized, Tanner, it would be a public declaration of something you already done. And so I would encourage you to do it. Do it, Tanner. Come on. Let's get baptized together. I'll baptize again. Just make sure it took.
Just double dip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like my testimony, if you will, to use that term, is not one that you would expect to hear from somebody that was raised the way that I was raised, because I had I was saved event when I was a kid at a camp, like so many kids raised in that context.
Yeah.
Went to pre-K 2 years, kindergarten, 1st through 10th at one single private school, went to Hyde Park from sophomore till senior year, went to Mary Hardin Baylor for 4 years. So chapel, youth groups, camps, that was my life growing up. I don't feel like I really, I don't feel like I was saved in the way that you would talk about it until I was 38 recently.
Praise God.
But because when you're raised around it as a kid and you see so much fraudulence in the I get that you're not supposed to look at the people around you. When you're a kid, everything is looking at the people around you. You're looking for examples to follow.
Correct.
Right.
And the people should be examples because kids are looking.
Right. Yeah. You would know. When you see so much of that and there's that incongruence there between what this person says on Saturday and what you see from them on Sunday, it's a very difficult thing to not see in yourself. Yeah. And because we're all flawed, you have these moments where it's like, okay, my faith is really strong right now. Yeah. But I also had these thoughts that are pretty awful, or things that I've done in my past that are pretty awful. And I don't know, man, it's a hard thing to even talk about with a buddy, let alone with a buddy on a podcast.
Yeah.
Cause I don't like public declarations of things. I like to just sort of let what people see from me and the way that I act be the thing that speaks the loudest.
Sure. Sticking your neck out is scarier than not sticking your neck out.
Uh-huh.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, completely.
I totally get it. Totally get the risk.
Uh-huh. When was your faith tested the most? Did you ever have a period where it was like, does
July
God really
July
exist?
9th, 2020.
That's why I asked. You mentioned that date on our first visit.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming up on the 5-year anniversary of a leukemia diagnosis for a
Yep.
kid.
Yeah, July 9th, 2020. My sweet wife. Sweet wife.
The rafter? The whitewater rafter?
Yeah. The one that abandoned her kids for 10 days. The kids are fine, I think. I don't know where they are.
Yeah.
She texted me, I think Dylan has cancer. So that was on July 9th, 2020.
Was he going into a doctor's appointment that day anyways?
He was.
For symptoms he was having?
We scheduled a dentist appointment because his jaw hurt. And his neck was swollen. And went to the pediatrician, did some blood work. And the pediatrician came back and said, we're going to do it again. And Heather, who's a registered nurse, lost it. Moms have this crazy sixth sense of just knowing what's going on. And she lost it. Pediatrician came back and said, Heather, this is your freak out moment, but your son is watching you. So you need to get your stuff together and drive to the hospital and take care of this. And anyway, so that was the beginning of quite a journey that tested our faith, because why would God allow a 5-year-old to get cancer? It's a fair, good question. So quite a test of our faith during that time.
Do you ever talk about it, or do you try to avoid talking about it?
I try to avoid talking about it, but it does come up every now and then. But yeah, it was a tough time. But I love talking about the bigger picture. I love talking about yes, how healthy he is, but I love talking about what I believe God was doing in my heart through this journey, for sure.
When it feels like a testing of your faith, can you describe the process of going from that test to then going back to talking to God? Was that a hard thing to come back to?
No.
Was it instant?
It was out loud driving north on Mopac on I-35, out loud. The prayer was, please God, don't let it be cancer.
Yeah.
And the next day, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And so on the 4th floor of the north side of Dell Children's Hospital, because it was COVID, it was quiet. And it was just me, Heather, Dylan, and some light knocks from the nurses, but it was quiet. And so I was able to experience a type of rest and quiet because of the situation. I was just by myself, basically. And in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30:15, it's, and repentance and rest is your salvation. And in quietness and trust is your strength. And so I was quiet enough to read that scripture and consider the words and what it meant. And I got quiet enough and still enough to experience God's presence in a way that I haven't in my entire life. And I was experiencing God's presence because of this horrible scenario. However, when you experience God's presence, there's not just joy, but fullness of joy. And so while I don't like talking about how sick Dylan was, with praise and gratitude, I can talk about how do you go from cancer to joy? There is a path. It's crazy. Doesn't make sense, but that's exactly what happened.
Was Dylan your only kid at the time?
Nope. He was my middle.
He was the middle.
Mm-hmm. Still is. Yep.
What was going on with the other two?
The baby, Tyler, he didn't know what was going on. And the oldest, what we're finding out now, like this year, we're unpacking what it was like for a 7-year-old to have a younger brother going through that.
Mm.
And Heather and I giving a lot of attention to Dylan, all the things, and just, you can imagine what was that like for the older one. And so
Yeah.
he was witnessing it, but we had some breakthroughs recently from him opening up about how he felt about the situation, and very grateful for him to have the courage to speak up.
Yeah.
Heather and I have been going, getting some parent therapy to help us deal with it, to just improve our family dynamics, but also just because of all this, to help us parent well with these dynamics at play. And so there's no blood in his system, but we're still, quote, dealing with the effects of this traumatic event.
Yeah. You had mentioned, when we talked about it in our first visit, you had mentioned how you were on this path professionally where you were, anytime you were spending with the family, you were kind of looking forward to getting back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took that however many days you were in the hospital.
9 days.
9 days.
I did laundry in the hospital. What a bucket list item.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do laundry in
I didn't
hospital.
either. You can.
So 9 days of stillness that were sort of forced upon you, but that you learned some lessons through that time about where your priorities were out of whack. What would you tell somebody in my position who doesn't, it's like the thing that you went through 5 years ago is amongst my deepest, darkest fears, right?
Yeah.
Is for any parent, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And a consistent prayer that I have is, please don't let something like that be the thing that it takes to wake me up or to come back from regrets of where I'm spending my time. And, I've told you that I'm taking a sabbatical.
Yeah, I'm
soon.
excited for you about that.
So what would you tell somebody who's going to take a pause in their professional life for 3 months to 6 months, however long it takes? Where should my head be? How can I learn the lessons that you learned without having to learn them the hard way?
First, I'm really, really glad that you're doing that. I'm glad that you're being selfish. It's very positive, but selfish in a good way.
Yeah.
The second part of my prayer driving up I-35 before Airport Boulevard was God, please don't let it be cancer. But the second part of that prayer was, but I trust you. So I would offer up just a palms up, like, I trust you with this time, and just this release and let go of any control and allow yourself to rest. I've never done a professional sabbatical, so I can't speak from that standpoint, but force yourself to have times of solitude, just quiet by yourself time. And with this, just accept the invitation that Jesus gives us, all you who are weary, burdened, heavy laden. He says, take my yoke, which means there's action there. You have to take the rest. And so it's not a passive, you're not going to go through a passive thing. It's actually going to be an action. Take his rest. Because he is gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. So pursue him, pursue his rest. And he made us. He knows what we need. Just take it. But I've never had a professional sabbatical like you're doing. And so I can't wait to hear when it's over.
It's a very difficult thing for somebody who's a striver by nature.
Yeah.
To cease striving and to just
abide,
be still.
Pace is everything, Tanner. Pace is everything.
Yeah.
Jesus walked 3 miles per hour.
Well, like even thinking about this period of time that I'm going to take, I don't want it to be wasted time. So where my sort of stress level is actually increased by thinking about taking those months off is in thinking about making good use of the time. What can I do every day to make sure that I'm taking care of these elements of my life? I need to block time for it.
Sure.
But that's kind of the antithesis of being still and resting and I don't know how to.
How would you define wasting time?
If I get to the end of those 3 months or 6 months, if it's through the end of the year, and I realize that I didn't take the time that I got back from my professional life and apply it to something that had been neglected. If I'm just filling that time with fluff, like you had mentioned being selfish. That's the thing that I get anxious about, is that feeling of like I'm getting me time. I don't need me time. I need to be focused on the people around me. So that's a hard concept to get my head around.
Crowds going after Jesus. There were crowds, and they needed him.
Mm.
And he said, hold on real quick. And he went away by himself. He got away. He had so much work to do, but he didn't do that. He took time away to be with his Father. Those Thursday night deals, the Friday, the Thursday fire deal,
My campfire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great model for your sabbatical.
Mm.
It was planned, but like it wasn't like an agenda necessarily.
Right.
And you could argue you wasted time with your buddies 4 or 5 hours a night every Thursday.
Mm.
So I'm going to encourage you to absolutely waste time, but waste time by yourself, waste time with your maker, waste time with God. That would be a great way to spend your time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's it's a good segue into talking about the yips. We talked about that in the green room.
Yeah.
Somebody that's had the yips in a sports context where all of your experience, all of your background, all of the hundreds and thousands of reps you've had, just for whatever reason that leaves you, and it seems to leave you when you're like a college athlete and you should have it figured out, and when it falls apart, it's pretty disruptive.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get back on the rails, because the more you try to get back on the rails, the deeper you descend into the pit of despair of the yips. And I think there's some of that can be applied to life too. That's what I fear, is that you push so hard to try to get things organized in a way that you're effective.
Yeah.
And the more pressure you put on it and the more striving you do, the further you get away from your goal.
Mm-hmm.
That concept of the yips applied to a decade of life. Like, there's a lot of people that would find themselves after 10 years looking back in hindsight, realizing, oh man, like I have just completely fallen apart.
Striving, that word drive and striving, that used to be energizing. Like, yeah, I want to be striving and I want to do all that stuff and have ambition and drive. And my wife's like, yeah, one of the things I was attracted to, like, you had this drive. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Now that sounds exhausting.
Huh. Why?
I don't want to strive anymore for like the things I used to strive for. It sounds exhausting. Why? Because it's just, you run out of gas for sure. Yeah, the yips is horrible. I remember like where I was, like on the mound, and I couldn't. If there was a guy on first base, I could not throw over to first. It was like a mental, and it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
My coach was like, "Quit throwing over," and there I go. It was horrible. And one time I had balked. I got pulled because I couldn't even, I physically couldn't even come set. So I had my hand behind my back, getting the sign, and I just made a pitch without even coming set, like a little league, like you're teaching your son, come set, like, yeah, the yips is horrible.
Yeah.
But that was at the end of my career. So I don't know if there's a connection between that either, but yeah, yips are bad. Striving in the right context is just fine, but it depends what you're striving for.
What's going on in your brain when you're having the yips, when you're experiencing it? For me, it was if somebody laid a bunt down, like, forget about it. I'm throwing it into right field.
If you're sitting in the stands, heads up.
Yeah, it's going into the dugout, and you go through this mental process of the ball's on the ground. Okay, I know I've got to field it. That's my spot to field. And the whole process of running up to the ball, grabbing it, and turning to first, you're thinking, don't throw this into right field.
Mm,
Because you know what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
You can feel it in your stomach how embarrassing it's going to be when you launch the ball into right field. And then you do. It's like your brain feared it and it just manifested it into reality.
yeah.
Well, I fear reaching the end of a sabbatical and looking back in hindsight going, man, I just completely, like, I completely neglected my responsibilities for 3 months selfishly.
Well, Tanner, what if that's true? What if that happens?
Then I threw the ball into right field.
And then what?
I mean, I don't know.
We'll play it out.
I mean, worst case scenario. You want me to go through the
No,
worst
not
case
necessarily
scenario?
worst case, but like, look, okay. So you didn't have a great sabbatical.
Yeah.
So what? I mean, it matters, but I'm just asking, like, play it out. So then what?
It matters because the point of doing it is to get direction on things that you're too close to where you can't get that direction otherwise.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole reason to do it is when you're doing one thing for 11 years and you're in the weeds
Yeah.
growing the business, you don't really have space to pull back and to look at the horizon and make sure you're pointed the right direction.
Yeah.
I don't have any direction going into it. I'm kind of trusting that
Yeah.
getting into it is going to make the direction clear. But that's a fear. It's like you reach the end of it and you're right back where you started and you realize, oh, I'm 3 months behind now because I just completely let my reins go slack.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what scares me.
Sure. I think it scares you because this is important to you.
Yes.
This company is important to you. You not wasting your time is important to you. The only thing you can control at this point is that you scheduled it, that you took it, that you're doing it.
Yeah.
So good for you for making a really wise decision by carving some time out.
And making a public declaration of sabbatical is a
How
great
about
way to
that?
keep yourself accountable.
How about that?
Yeah,
there's something to that.
declaration.
But if you pick up the ball and throw it in right field, like, then how about this? You're going to get back on the mound, strike the next guy out,
Toe the rubber.
get back on the bump,
Yeah.
suck it up,
Yeah. Probably a good way to look at it.
get back on the mound.
Is what you do for a living honorable?
Yes.
Tell me why.
What I do for a living is about other people. And so I'm serving other people. We're in the trenches with students and families and teachers. And so we're in the service business, just like you are. There's honor there. Our goal, our mission is to help people, so I think there's honor in that.
Yeah.
It's also, to be in education, it's very, you have to sacrifice a lot. Sacrifice yourself, your family time, things like that. It's a quote thankless job, especially the teachers. The teachers have the most honorable positions in any schools. They're the ones doing the heaviest lifting and the heaviest work. And coaches are in that as well. Teachers and coaches make because everyone listening to this podcast within 5 seconds, like, who's your favorite teacher? Boom. They could say it. Who's your favorite coach? So there's a lot of honor there and like making those deposits and those differences that sometimes last with you for the rest of your life. Opposite's true as well. Gotta be careful because sometimes we have those memories of that teacher or coach that said something that we'll never forget and it's negative and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's honor in all that.
Is that why you got into it?
No.
Why did you get into it?
I had nothing better to do. No,
Really?
I got into it because I was asked. I was kind of voluntold, hey, you're going to go here and help the pitchers. Obviously not tell them how to pitch for the stretch, but you're going to, you're going to go help. You're going to go help this baseball team. And I said, yes, sir. Sure.
What was your degree in?
Sociology. Me and Martin Luther King Jr., the same.
Yeah.
We're a lot alike. I was started out in business, just like everyone else. I don't know, business. And then my parents got divorced my freshman year of college. And a introduction course to the sociology degree was marriage and family. And so I became very interested in this whole idea of marriage and relationships. So I took this intro marriage and family course and I just kept being interested in this whole field. So I changed my major to sociology so I can keep learning about basically why did my parents get divorced?
Really?
Yeah. And sociology is, about groups and teams and in general. And looking back on it, that's very much what I do now. I try to build great teams to help groups of people. It was a bachelor level, so I'm by no means an expert in sociology, but anyways, that's why I got into it.
And how do you go from that to coaching? You graduate.
So I played my whole life,
Yeah.
and then I graduated with a sociology degree. Okay.
Without knowing what you were going to do next?
No. I was supposed to be a baseball player. And the Seattle Mariners called. So we're not drafting. I should have kept the voicemail. That was the extent of my professional career. Mark Loomis called and said, we might pick you up as a free agent. But I was done at that point. And so the only skill I could offer someone for payment would be, okay, I can do baseball lessons, pitching lessons. And so that's how it started. I was coaching a select team, doing baseball lessons, and all that brought me to school.
So you start as a coach.
Yep.
How quickly thereafter do you become a teacher?
6 months.
Is it just part and parcel?
Well, they asked me, do you want to do this full time? Because I was just a part-time coach.
Yeah.
I was like, sure, I guess. I've never thought about it. And I called my mom. Mom, I have a question. Yep. How do you teach?
Was she a teacher?
36 years.
Okay.
We don't hire like that anymore. We don't just pluck people up. I promise. The bar's way higher. I went to Barnes and Nobles and got a World Geography for Dummies book. So, not a second of teaching, training, nothing. And so after I got hired, I went to Laterno University across Mopac, and Dr. Darla Baggett taught me how to be a teacher. And I got my teacher certification, that kind of stuff. And then I started taking it serious, obviously more serious. But
was that all at Hyde Park?
Uh-huh.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in there, you became a doctor.
Yeah, that just means I have more college debt than you do.
Yeah.
That was way later, obviously, but taught for a while, not very long, 5 years, and then back to my parents getting divorced. I actually printed off the Texas State University Marriage and Family Graduate School. I thought I was going to be like a counselor, still interested in that subject. I remember I printed off because it took like all my paper, my printer. The same week, 2 people asked me to consider going to administration. I was like, all right, sure. So then Dr. Joe Kopech asked me, he was one of those people.
Yeah.
And he said, why don't you consider administration? And I saw how he was a principal and how he supported teachers. And he wasn't all about the outside of the classroom. He was interested in what's going on inside the classroom. And so I wanted to be like him. So then I really got serious about master's degree, and I just kept going after that. But yeah, fell in love with the classroom.
You stay in touch with him?
Every year, the first day of school, every single year I call him.
Really?
I'm like, first day. And we get together about once a year. He's a very, very important person in my life. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked a little bit last time about the young people that you've helped to mentor. We didn't talk about the flip side of that, though. Your mentors.
Yeah.
Do you still maintain consistent relationships with mentor figures?
Yeah, I thrive on that. I have to have that. I probably annoy them, but I've got a handful of people that I still connect with, and I just need it. People in education, other head of schools, everywhere from California to Virginia, like I reach out to and ask questions. And but yeah, Dr. Kopech is still someone that I think about. I quote him all the time. I imitate him all the time. I say, yeah, it's important. There's just a shape, you've got them too. They just, you just hear them inside your head.
Yeah.
It's really important to get good ones.
Ironically, Dr. Joe Kopech is one of the people that I met who was a man of faith that I related to.
Sure. Because he drove a motorcycle to school and would hunt and fish and all the things. And
I met him when I was in my 20s, getting started in a sales profession. Hyde Park's my alma mater.
Yeah.
I knew what their situation was. I knew I could help them with the products that we sold. And he was the guy that I got connected to. And just getting to spend a little bit of time with him and to see how he operated, it was like, oh, he's just a normal dude.
He was a normal dude.
But he's
actually,
also a man of faith.
Yeah, he was actually not a normal dude. Like, he would like put motorcycles together.
Mm.
Like, really smart guy.
Yeah.
But he was in public school for 30 years.
Huh.
Brought Young Life to Austin High. Brought Young Life to Hyde Park. But now if you ask him, he's like 73 years old. Him and his wife, Karen, his first wife passed away of cancer, remarried, Dr. Karen Kopek, educator. They're in seminary at 73 years old.
Huh.
Just to keep learning. And if you ask him, hey, what are you up to? He would say, I have breakfast with men, which is part of your deal too.
Yeah.
He just has breakfast with men and gets in their life and disciples them.
That's cool. I should re-engage with him. He'd
He's-
be a good person
he's in
to have
Bernie.
in here.
He's in Bernie.
He's in Bernie?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll re-engage with him soon then.
Yeah. Joseph Francis Kopek. Play football at Baylor.
Did he? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Your world's changing quite a bit. School choice just passed in the state of Texas, right?
It did.
Talk about that a little bit. You were actually the first person to make me aware of that even being on the docket.
Yeah. Senate Bill 2, it passed. We'll see how it goes.
From your perspective, is that a good thing?
Yes, it's a good thing.
Okay. Tell me why.
Because families will have access to education that's better in some cases to education that they're forced to have.
So explain school choice to somebody that doesn't have any prior knowledge of it.
Yeah. Families can apply for basically financial assistance to go to a different school than the one they're required and zoned to go to. And the requirements, there's different requirements. But if you qualify, then you'll have the ability to have money go from the state comptroller to, in this case, a private school. The parents never touch the money, which is a good thing. Because one of my questions is like, well, what if they just buy a flat screen TV? It doesn't work that way. If huge capital letter if the kid gets accepted to the private school, then the state will give 4 payments, potentially of $2,500 a piece. So it's $10,000, hypothetically ish, $10,000 to help offset the tuition. Now, most schools are more than that, but it's obviously significant help. And so these families just do the math and, so basically the kid get accepted to the private school and the parents still have to pay tuition, but then the school receives payments from the state.
It's basically reallocating your tax dollars away from your local school district to the school that you're choosing.
I'm not going to say yes to that.
Okay. I don't know it well enough to know.
Well, right. It gets complicated. But in addition to school choice, the governor signed a bill to give a bunch of money to public school as well. And my biggest thing was I like being private. So I would rather not take the state's money as long as I can, quote, stay private.
Yeah.
And that is how it is. That is the deal. There's no strings attached.
There's no influence.
No.
They don't get to talk about your curriculum choices, any of that.
And if there was, we're out.
I
understand the argument from public school side of like, you're taking resources away, things like that. I totally get it. And that's where I was, because I served in public school for 3 years. And like, if you serve it for 3 seconds, you're like, whatever. But then I started thinking, okay, let's just back up a little bit. Let's just be honest about this question. What's best for this child? Well, it's up for the parents to decide. And if the parent thinks that this school is better than this school, what's wrong with that? What's wrong if they have access to a better education in the parent's mind?
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. Texas isn't the first state to do it, but it could be a game changer for a lot of families here's a scenario. You got two working class parents, blue collar jobs, whatever, both have to work. Um, there's no chance that they can afford, a high end private school. Well, now there might be,
Hmm.
right? Also, students with special education needs, they get even more money. Socioeconomic is another bucket, meaning if the household income is less than a certain amount. So, SPED folks, economically disadvantaged folks, those are where the most of the bucket goes, and then it's everyone else. Um, so
So the argument against it is that the schools in the districts where these people are zoned, you're taking money away from them, but you're saying the state is also bolstering
yeah,
their money elsewhere?
yeah, I'm not comfortable to say that they're taking away from the neighborhood schools,
Yeah.
taking away from the local.
I'm saying that's the argument made
For
against school
sure,
choice.
yeah, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I do know that competition is a good thing. I also know that um, it's not a lot, like in Austin private schools, like $10,000. Parents still got to pay a lot
Yeah.
to make up the difference, but this will be a five. We'll see if it's good or bad 5, 10, 15 years from now. We'll see.
Yeah.
Too early to
Hard
tell.
to judge
Yep.
year one.
Yeah, but I'm in support of it, and I think it's a good thing. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we're in an interesting position in that moving into a small town, making relationships with people from your small
Yeah.
town is a hard thing anyways.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not from that town.
Yeah.
If you're the guy that moved from the big city and bought the property outside of the small town and you're not
Yeah.
from there, like people already have in their mind what you are before you
Yeah.
even meet them.
You city slicker.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then when you don't send your kids to the public school and you choose the little Christian school up the street instead, and then ultimately that school doesn't work out and we're homeschooling, we have this reluctance to send them to public school for fear of it not working out when they get there.
Mhm.
And then you're the person that put your kid in public school and then yanked them out.
Yeah.
Like it's a daunting thing to wrap your head around doing.
Yeah.
So we've decided to continue homeschooling them for the time being, but it's an inevitability that we'll send them to public school at some point.
Yeah.
What I'm spending more of my time thinking about now in relation to the schooling piece is the socialization thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have a kid that our boys are very, very social. They want to be around other people. And
Who do they get that from, Tanner?
I don't know. Can't be me, right? Yeah, the apple on the tree.
Uh-huh.
But I fear them not getting socialized or not getting to, experience the things that a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old would get to experience.
Yeah.
What would you tell a set of parents in our circumstance where it's hard to kind of work your way through those decisions?
I would say that they have a great mom and dad, which matters a lot.
Mm.
They got a great set of parents. It's a stable home, which matters a lot. And then, take it a year at a time. Socialization is important. You can get that in communities outside of just schooling. And also, not all public schools are the same. Some public schools, especially small town, like they're way different than big public school in big city or whatever. So not all public schools are the same.
Yeah.
And public schools have plenty of advantages over especially smaller private schools in smaller towns.
Mm.
So I would say keep that home nice and healthy, and that puts less pressure on where you send them off.
Yeah.
And it does take a village. That's a thing. But yeah, you'll find some like-minded families that you do this together, and it's the extracurriculars and our faith community and your family, and your kids are going to be fine.
Yeah.
Regardless of what school they go to, whether it's private or public.
Last topic.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about Hyde Park specifically.
Yep.
Under your leadership, you've been head of school now for how long?
3 years.
3 years. You've been there for how long total?
Forever. 20.
20. Where's the school going? For somebody who's considering what to now do with their kids given the shifting landscape.
Yeah.
If they're considering Hyde Park, what are the advantages that you have there?
Yeah.
Where is the school going? What are your plans for growth? What are your plans for the future there?
Thanks for asking, Tanner.
Make a sales pitch, Chris.
We have a wide front door at Hyde Park, and we accept families of different faiths, no faiths at all, different learning differences. We have a wide front door at Hyde Park.
Has that changed? Accepting of different faiths and backgrounds? Seems like that wasn't the case when I went there.
Well, I wasn't there when you were there.
Yeah.
I can say that Bob Ed Shotwell, the founder of Hyde Park, in 1968, wanted a Christ-centered college prep school for all. And so what might have changed was either forgetting about the founder's desires and or just making it clear that we're a missional school. We're a covenant staff, meaning the staff are God-fearing Christians, okay? But we want to serve the Austin and greater Austin community by providing a Christ-centered college prep school. Hyde Park is, well, one of the football coaches that we interviewed said Hyde Park's a sleeping giant, which I think is a compliment, meaning there's other private schools in town that might have a leg up in some areas, but Hyde Park serves kids with learning differences. Hyde Park is in Central Austin. Hyde Park has athletic facilities that are second to none. But most importantly, we're saying we're not drifting. If you want a school that is going to continue to be who they say they are and value community and value excellence and strive for a Christ-centered culture and not be ashamed of the gospel, we're going to do that. But that's where my kids go. And because it's a safe place for them to learn and become who they're supposed to be. But Hyde Park's an imperfect school with a hypocritical head of school. So just there's the disclaimer. No, we love our team at Hyde Park loves and is passionate about kids. And we're the best in the world at community. And an economic driver for us is providing unreasonable hospitality the entire way. And if we keep our head down in those areas, we'll be fine. But yeah, come check it out, hbaustin.org.
It's interesting to think of a school as a service business.
We compete with free schools. We got to be good.
Yeah. It's cool. It's the next thing I would want to talk to you about, and we're out of time, so we can't do it today, but I want to dive into it with you.
Yeah.
Is this concept of it being college preparatory? Because for a set of parents like Ashton and me, we have two boys that are very, very different from each other. And it remains to be seen, what career choice they're going to make that their personality will lend itself well to. Just there's no way of knowing they're 10 and 7. But I do expect that at least one of them may not be benefited from a college experience. Like, I'm not positive my college experience put me in any better position professionally than I would have had I just used those 4 years to go work.
Yeah.
That's not to say I regret going to college, because it's my life and, I'm here. But I do think that the requirements for a kid to go to college in our generation, for our kids, I think that's a shifting landscape too.
We'll prepare your kids for college, but you're going to get so much more than just knowledge at Hyde Park. You're going to get some wisdom, hopefully a lot of wisdom. We had a senior that graduated this year that got accepted to colleges and is choosing to become a paramedic. And we say, God bless Ryan. Awesome. We don't hide, that's great. Yeah. He was prepared for college, but he chose to serve his community that way. Cool.
I think the cultural momentum has shifted enough that our parents' generation probably would have seen that as like, oh boy, yeah, he should go to college. I don't think our generation is going to look at the world that way.
Yeah, my wife can relate to that.
Yeah. We'll use that as a jumping off point for a follow-up discussion then.
Wonderful.
Thanks for making time for this. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tanner.
Enjoy your steak evening with your buddies.
I hope I don't burn it.
Thanks, Chris.